The question is, did Barbra Streisand clone her dog in South Korea? What does that even mean? A lot of you may be wondering, who is Barbra Streisand? Barbra Streisand was an actor in the... One second. Okay, there we go. She is an American singer as well as an actress and a filmmaker. I didn't even know clothing was a real thing yet. Clothing's a real thing, like it actually exists. Dude, you're lying. There's no way. I mean, the internet's the internet, man. I don't know. I've learned to not trust the internet until there's like factual proof. You know what I mean? So I really don't know how to dissect the sentence. Did Barbra Streisand clone her dog in South Korea? The cloning's weird, and why South Korea? Let's get into it. Okay, this is from the New York Times. Barbra Streisand cloned her dog for $50,000. You can clone yours. That's crazy. Okay, Barbra Streisand revealed in an interview that 2 of her 3 Catan de Tuileries had been cloned from her beloved late dog Samantha, who died last year at the age of 14. That's crazy. Dude, that means, well, I mean, the original pet may pass away, and there's obviously gonna be like emotional feelings, but if you can clone a dog, doesn't that mean sometime in the future we're gonna be able to clone human beings? Because they're biological creatures, right? If you can clone human beings, then no, but watch. Real question. Bow. If you die and your clone survives, are you still alive? That's so interesting. Specifically, the magazine reported that the dogs Miss Violet and Miss Scarlet have been cloned from cells taken from the mouth and stomach of Miss Streisand's late dog Samantha, who was 14 when she died last year. That's so crazy. But some facts for y'all, the more you know. Miss Violet and Miss Scarlet have different personalities. So is it really a clone then, or is it just like a... Because I feel like dogs, they look very similar. So how could you know that it's a clone? What if they asked for $50K and they went to the shop and then they bought similar dogs, Cologne de Tuileries, and they brought you 2 Cologne de Tuileries? How would you know? You wouldn't. I'm so confused now. Okay. All right, continuing on. It says, even if you are not a close follower of clones, you may recall Dolly the sheep, who was born in 1996. Since then, researchers have cloned about 24 other mammal species, including cattle, deers, horses, rabbits, cats, rats, and yes, dogs. Oh, so it's a real thing. South Korean researchers announced that they had cloned a dog for the first time in 2005 after almost 3 years of work and more than 1,000 eggs. With help from a yellow Labrador retriever who served as a surrogate mother, a cloned male Afghan hound named Snuppy was born. Snuppy, of course, stood for Seoul National University puppy. That's so crazy. Yo, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the brink of being able to clone ourselves. But like, what does that mean for humanity? That's so interesting. Wow. Okay. And then obviously the most important thing is going to be cost in order to make it functional for everybody. And it's saying both articles say Sound Biotech charged about $100,000 to attempt the process. Wow. Vegan Pets, a company based in Texas, says it charges $50,000 for the cloning or $1,600 to merely preserve your pet's genes. So that's crazy. So that means it's actually viable. I mean, $100,000 for an attempt is kind of impractical. But I'm saying, like, technology advances so quickly that maybe in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, like, it's gonna be feasible, right? It's gonna be like a payable amount. That's so interesting. Wow, okay, so Barbra Streisand really cloned her dog in Seoul. The more you know. So we were talking about human clones, right? Okay, so here's an article on Discover about it. Cloning's long legacy while it'll never be used on humans. Interesting. Okay, so for some, the image was a bit too close for comfort. Long before Dolly the sheep was cloned, almost 23 years ago, science fiction writers have fantasized about armies of lookalikes wiping out the rest of humanity, or clones bred solely to sustain their identical ancestors. The idea of clones is unsettling because it violates the fundamental moral understanding that we're all different and equally valuable. Does it though? So cloning agree. Prominent scientists involved in cloning say they've never had any intention of replicating a person and are wary of the idea as everyone else. So research serves other purposes. Investigations onto cloning have been divided into two areas. So a really, really big area probably would be reproductive cloning, mainly to improve livestock breeding, and therapeutic cloning aimed at growing cells, not whole humans, that can be used to treat diseases. They were talking about this with stem cells too. So that means they would just be able to clone an organ, like a healthy organ, and then that means transplants wouldn't be a problem, right? Anyway, moving on. Let's focus on the positive. But they're saying it's possible. It's just that it's unsettling for human beings. But is it really unsettling for human beings? I don't know. That's really weird. Because then, like, if I am able to clone myself, that wouldn't really even be me, though, right? Because he would have a different consciousness from me. Okay, so I guess that kind of brings us back to the question of, would you make a clone if you were capable of it? Like, I know in the article it says like it's 100K right now. But I mean, let's take it like 20, 30, 40, 50, even 100 years into the future, right? If you can make a clone, that means you can transplant your organs infinitely. That means you could live forever, right? But then we come to the question of, what about the human rights involved in that? You have to generate the whole body, and then you would have to take the organs from that. But then once the whole body's there, and it's an adult, right? I'm assuming that it's gonna be generated as an adult. Does that person not have human rights? It just goes so deep, right? Because then, like, what about the clone? What if you clone the clone's clone? Does that clone become a clone, or is that now an individual because of the fact that it was two clones and two negatives make a positive? Know what I mean? Okay. But anyway, straying from that, I guess going to a more casual topic. If you had a clone, I feel like if it was somehow proven to me that that's okay, it's legitimate, it's humane, then I feel like, I don't know, it's a hard question. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. You can save time, you can save lives. It may be a pro, but it's also kind of a con. It's iffy. It's weird. I mean, because, see, that's sentimental value. And let's say, I mean, obviously, if you're a normal family in America, what does a normal family generate? Like 50, 60K a year? And then if you're trying to pay 100K for a pet at that point, I feel like most people would be like, that's ludicrous. That's crazy, right? But then if you're like a multi-millionaire and then you have a lot of sentimental attachments like a pet, then like, wouldn't it be feasible, like possible? People spend hundreds of thousands on cars and hobbies and accessories. Like, wouldn't you be able to spend that amount of money on something that you've exerted that much emotion into? That's so hard, because I'm assuming that it's gonna, if this becomes like a normal thing, it's gonna become cheaper, right? As technology progresses, it's gonna get cheaper. It's gonna become more normal. And once it's normalized, people might start doing it. That's so weird, though. Imagine never being worried about your pet passing away. Or like, if it gets sick, just not even worrying, not even caring. That might desensitize a lot of things. What happens to the soul? Like a pet, right? So if you have a clone, is the soul transferred out? You think you think if you ever clone yourself, like, it would just be another entity? Or like, half your consciousness would be transferred to it? So that could be a thing, because if you weren't aware of it, then that means your new consciousness that transfers in would be you, technically. But then the real you would be gone. That's so trippy. And cloned their dogs in South Korea for $50,000. Fact!